Hey there. Welcome to another long-distance worship service. My name is Kleber Van Zant. I'm minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Venice, where we strive to be a beacon of liberal religion for Florida's Suncoast and a refuge to all who seek a welcoming community, no matter your color, creed, ability, or class, your affectional orientation, gender expression, political affiliation, religious belief. Here, we celebrate our differences as we learn from one another. If you'd like to know more about this congregation and its many opportunities for learning, growth, and connection, you can peruse our calendar and announcements on Facebook or on our webpage at uucov.org. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like this video by hitting the thumbs up icon below. Leave us a note in the comments section and click that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Our director of music, Dr. Marcel Leonard, will be away the next few weeks, and so we have a number of people helping provide music through September. Also, a number of folks have formally joined this congregation over the last few months. Most recently, Dick Pastora, husband of Nancy Ryder. Dick signed the book and became a member recently. Welcome, Dick. COVID has hit many nonprofit organizations' budgets hard. This congregation is no different. We hope you'll consider clicking the donate button on our website and giving as generously there as you can. This past week, in fact, this congregation was able to provide $20,320 in seed money to Laurel Civic Association and their new Hand Up initiative. Hand Up is an empowerment project to build financial capacity in economically distressed, low-income families and underserved populations of Laurel and the surrounding areas. And through the generous donations of our members and friends, we're glad to help begin making that program a success. This does continue to be a difficult time for many of us and our neighbors, and we hope you'll find something in this service that speaks to you and maybe lifts you up or challenges you in ways that lead to spiritual reflection and personal growth. We're very glad you've chosen to join us. Welcome to church today. The prelude begins our service. Our call to worship comes from Gregory Pelly. And so we gather digitally from the ebb and flow of our lives, thirsty for connection to ourselves, thirsty for connection to others, thirsty for connection to the larger life. As we light this chalice, may all of us be filled with joy and hope, with compassion and love, that we may pour ourselves out into the world. Let us worship together. Our hymn is Spirit of Life, which is at number 123 in our hymnal. We'll sing one verse in English and another verse in Spanish.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life to share.
Our children have their own religious education class by Zoom each Sunday at 10 a.m. If you'd like to attend or help your child attend, login information for those classes can be found on our website at uucov.org or on our Facebook page. This week, we'll bring you a recording our kids viewed a while back, that comes from a San Jose, California public library series. It's called We Share Stories. This will be a person named Talon Marks sharing a book called Pride, the Story of Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag.
Today we're going to hear the story called Pride, the Story of Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag.
Hi, I'm Talon Marks, and I'm here at the San Jose Public Library with We Share Stories to read a very special book about feeling good about yourself. And that book is Pride, the Story of Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag by Rob Sanders. Let's take a look. You have to give them hope. Hope for a better world. Hope for a better tomorrow. Harvey Milk was an ordinary man, but he had an extraordinary dream, the dream that would change history. Harvey dreamed that everyone, even gay people, would have equality. He dreamed that he and his friends would be treated like everyone else. He dreamed that one day, people would be able to live and love as they pleased. With his New York accent, Harvey talked to everyone about his dream. His voice boomed. His body bounced with energy and excitement. Some people listened. A few agreed. Most did not. But Harvey's big voice and his big dream wouldn't be stopped. He discovered that the best way to change laws was to help make laws. In 1977, Harvey Milk took a big step toward that dream when he became one of the first openly gay people to be elected to political office in the United States. Harvey and his friends planned marches to protest inequality and unfair laws. And just days before one of the marches, Harvey had an idea. A symbol, he thought. We need a symbol that shows who we are and how we feel. Something to carry during the march. Something to make people feel they're part of a community. Something to give people hope. Something extraordinary. Harvey knew an artist who could help, Gilbert Baker. Harvey asked. Gilbert said, "We need a flag." Volunteers arrived to help Gilbert's design come to life. Together, they dipped fabric into large barrels filled with vivid, vibrant colors. They cut and pieced and sewed until Harvey, Gilbert, and the other activists had a flag with 8 colorful stripes, a flag that Harvey hoped would help give hope. Rights are won only by those who make their voices heard. On June 25th, 1978, when it was time for the march, a breeze stirred in San Francisco. The flag unfurled. Equality, pride, hope, love. Harvey's dream became a flag for all of us. I'm Talon Marks. Again, thank you for joining us at the San Jose Public Library with We Share Stories. And this was Pride, the story of Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag. To see more stories like this, come visit our library. You'll see the URL right here. Thank you.
Our meditation is by the Reverend Dick Gilbert. Be gentle with one another. It is a cry from the lives of people battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and from the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there of hope and hurt, of promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care, for there are human beings within, human beings as vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It's too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring, lasting enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another. We lift up those in this community who face change, challenge, or loss today as we hold within our hearts all who suffer. And now we pray, each in our own ways, into the silence. The hopes of this community are offered forth in the names of all those who've gone before and in the names of all those who will come after. In the names of all the helpers of humankind. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. American songwriter John Prine died in Nashville on April 7th of COVID-19. One of Prine's last songs was entitled Summer's End, which includes the phrase, "Come on home," which Linda and I thought an awful lot during the sabbatical period. With the help of my friend Dennis Johnson, I've paired my own rendition of that song with a selection of photos almost entirely shot around the Venice area earlier this year. I hope it might let those of you who are away from here know that we think of you. Maybe it might inspire all of us to remember that place or those places we each call home.
Summer's end, around the bend, just flying. The swimming suits are on the line, just drying. I'll meet you there for our conversation. I hope I didn't ruin your whole vacation. Well, you never know how far from home you're feeling until you watch the shadows cross the ceiling. Well, I don't know, but I can see it snowing. In your car, the windows are wide open. Just come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. Valentines break hearts and minds at random. That old Easter egg ain't got a leg to stand on. Well, I can see that you can't win for trying. And New Year's Eve is bound to leave you crying. So come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. The moon and stars hang out in bars just talking. I still love the picture of us walking. Just like that old house we thought was haunted. Summer's end came faster than we wanted. Come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Come on home. Come on home. You don't have to be alone. Just come on home.
Just the word eviction can shatter your idea of home and send shivers up your spine, especially if you've ever been through one. Now, eviction is nothing new, but it's about to get much worse. I remember about 50 years ago, a family I knew that was evicted from the rent house they'd lived in for many years. Having nowhere they all could go together, the eviction caused them to disperse into separate living situations. One daughter staying at college, a younger one moving in with a couple from a local church. The dad drifted away for a time, I don't know where. But everybody else, the 11-year-old son, an 88-year-old great aunt, and my then wife's quadriplegic mother, all came to live with my wife and me and our two kids, with another on the way, in our little rent house. After that eviction, my wife's family of origin would never live together again. I was all of 19 years of age, and though I was surrounded by all those people, I felt awfully alone. Matthew Desmond's pre-pandemic book, Evicted, Poverty and Profit in the American City, helps set the stage for understanding the looming eviction crisis we're now facing post-pandemic. For a year and a half in inner city Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Desmond lived with people trapped in a system that degrades and dehumanizes the rich and the poor, the industrious and the lazy, the young and the old, the black and the white and the brown and the multi-hued, and all who live within it. It's a tough tale, but thankfully there are some people who survive and somehow find dignity and grace in an otherwise bleak landscape of ruined lives and unfeeling bureaucracy. It is still the case that the majority of poor renting families in America pay over half their monthly income for housing. At least a quarter spend over 70% on rent and utilities. Think about it this way. If your income is, say, $5,000 a month, you could spend 90% on housing and still have $500 for food and everything else. If, though, your income is more like $1,000 a month for yourself and your 3 kids, spending 70% or $700 on rent leaves you $300. $300 for food, transportation, health care, and any other expense that comes along. You're then not a couple of paychecks away from disaster. You're already there. It's not a matter of if you're going to fail, it's a matter of when. Oh, but if you do fail, not to worry, there's welfare. In 1997, welfare was reformed and stipends went up to $600 a month. If you thought my example a minute ago of $1,000 a month was hard, what are you going to do with $600? Not much. But it gets worse. By 2008, though housing costs had soared, welfare stipends had remained exactly the same for more than 10 years. But then you say there's public housing and the voucher system. What's the big deal? Well, one problem is that most poor people in America do not live in public housing or receive housing vouchers. 3/4 of people who qualify for help with housing never receive any. Now, we hear campaign rhetoric about saving our suburbs and keeping those who require housing assistance bottled up in inner cities where they belong. I first hear, and maybe you do too, the racial bias implicit in such calls. Suburbs, white. Inner cities, black. But there is that strong class prejudice as well. More poor whites are impacted by these calls than people of color. But Desmond's book focuses not on race, not on class, not even on gender. It focuses on eviction. First of all, simply the threat of eviction from a landlord causes some people to uproot and move from their community. But if the threat goes far enough and a court orders you evicted, a sheriff shows up with legal documentation and a moving company and throws you and all of your stuff out, no matter if you have babies or young children or elderly or infirm, no matter how hot or cold or wet or dry it is outside, no matter whether you have anywhere else to go or not. Your stuff is stacked out at the curb, and if you have nowhere to take it or a way to take it, it's left out there for any passersby to go through. Many families lose all their possessions this way. Furniture, clothing, kitchen appliances, toys, baby accoutrement, school books, everything. The process is a violent one. It's hard to have work to acquire things and then see them taken away by an impersonal and uncaring system. It's hard enough for the adults involved. What must it do to the children? But now comes 2020 and the coronavirus and COVID-19. And in March, most businesses shut down and the economy came to a standstill. To help out low-wage workers, the government gave a massive tax break to corporations. Now, wait a minute. They sent a one-time COVID relief payment of $1,200 to most adults, and they increased unemployment benefits by $600 a week to help people get through a couple of months without their jobs. They also announced moratoriums on evictions to try to stave off any sort of a housing crisis. Until 2020, there had been, on average, about 1.5 million evictions carried out each year across the country. 1.5 million sounds like a lot to me. But with the increase in unemployment benefits a thing of the past, and moratoriums on evictions now waning, estimates are that 30 to 40% of all renters may be at risk for eviction. That is 30 to 40 million people losing their homes and being tossed onto the street, which is not so much a crisis as it is a catastrophe for the families, for the landlords, for the courts, for the system, for the children. One further issue, not directly eviction related, we're already seeing areas where businesses have collapsed, leaving no infrastructure for those who live there. And so the more affluent are moving out of the cities. You might remember this also happened in the Great Plague that struck Europe beginning in 1347. Cities were decimated by the death of their citizens, but also by the migration of those who could afford to move, taking their resources with them, leaving the cities to recover on their own. That was an earlier time and another place. We don't have to worry about that now, do we? For some of us, no doubt, this whole topic will remain merely scholarly, an intellectual rather than an emotional exercise, one where we can read about and consider the lives of other people that we have empathy for, but no real connection to. Many would be surprised, however, at the number among us here in this congregation who have been in these situations ourselves, who have been evicted, who have been at the mercy of malevolent landlords, who've been dragged through the court system, even ended up in the justice system. Or we have close family members who have. And some of us have been landlords ourselves, stuck in these damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. But we're in Venice, Florida, you say, and surely we don't have that problem. Well, maybe not that problem, but we certainly have problems. The way I understand it, developers who want to build a few houses or a whole subdivision in the Venice area have to agree to also build a certain number of what are called affordable housing units. But then when the construction begins, they inevitably go back to the powers that are and plead that there are issues with affordable housing and they'd rather just build the neighborhood they started out to build. We can always build affordable units some other time. The consequence of that is, after decades of this developer-friendly governance, there is precious little affordable housing stock in Venice. Some in Northport, I guess. But if you're working in the service sector here, you probably ought to consider moving, maybe to Arcadia. That's a really nice place for people like you. Now imagine what your hourly wage would have to be to make it worthwhile driving to and from Arcadia every day. And that was before the pandemic cranked up. Service sector jobs evaporated overnight. They've remained gone for quite a few weeks now, and they have not rebounded anything like they need to. Maybe you've seen the list of national companies who have filed for bankruptcy and or shut their doors permanently. CMX Cinemas, J. Crew, Gold's Gym, Neiman Marcus, J.C. Penney, Cirque du Soleil, Brooks Brothers, Ann Taylor, Lane Bryant, California Pizza Kitchen, Lord and Taylor, Steinmark, Mart, and Bell's parent company. Many of these have local outlets, and so their local employees are impacted. And that's just the big businesses. How many locally owned and operated restaurants and bars, cinemas and entertainment complexes, clothing retailers, and fitness centers are not going to open back up again? What will those business owners do? And what about their employees? I saw the Reverend William Barber II interviewed on What Passes for a comedy show. Reverend Dr. Barber is co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, and he was most insightful on where it is we find ourselves and some of the things we might do about it. He recognizes that following closely on the heels of the opioid crisis that devastated Middle America recently, we're now facing a massive wave of new evictions. Before COVID, 140 million people in the United States were living in poverty. 62 million working people were making less than a living wage. 66 million white people were living in poverty and earning low wages. And 87 million of our fellow citizens were under or uninsured. If you take those pre-COVID numbers in aggregate, he said, it comes to about 43% of the electorate. And after COVID, you can expect that proportion of the population to be over 50%. Of those people, 32 million did not bother to vote in 2016 because they saw no point. No one was speaking to their issues. So, word up to the politically oriented. If you talked to those rejected people about their issues and you captured not even 20% of their votes, you would build a huge majority in 15 battleground states, plus the entire South. So if you were a candidate running for office and you could expand the electorate by bringing more people in rather than working so dang hard all the time to suppress the vote, wouldn't you do that? It's dismaying how high-minded we can feel as we continue to talk around our less affluent neighbors rather than to them and about their issues. I took down some of what Reverend Dr. Barber said, and I want to share it with you today. We need to move to the moral center and ask of each piece of public policy we put forward, does it establish justice? Does it ensure domestic tranquility? Does it provide for the common defense? Does it promote the general welfare? Does it give people equal protection under the law? If not, then it's constitutionally inconsistent, morally indefensible, and economically insane. White liberals, Barber said, overestimate the racism of poor white people and underestimate their own. But, he went on, we need to stop talking about racism as individual acts. It isn't. And when we use the term systemic racism, we show our lack of understanding of the problem because that's a redundant term. Racism has always been about structure. The question of whether someone is racist in their heart is a waste of time because the Klan member will say he's not racist. The cop who killed George Floyd will say he's not racist. You have to look at the policy you support and look at the disparate impact it's going to have on people. And you know, racism is aimed at black people and brown people and indigenous people, but ultimately, racism is anti-democracy, anti-humanity, and racism is a lie. If you will talk about racism in the right way and then connect it to the 5 interlocking injustices of systemic racism, systemic poverty, environmental devastation, the war economy, and the false narrative of religious nationalism, when you talk about those things, poor people can hear you. And then you can change the world. Some people do survive eviction. My then wife's family remained broken after their first eviction, but years have passed and the 4 siblings from that family grew up and have each led successful, productive lives and even ended up friends. I believe they would say that they are the lucky ones and blessed. Of course, not all evicted families fare so well, but some do. As this impending housing, employment, political, moral crisis plays itself out, a lot of people are going to need help. And if we want to be of actual assistance to those who've been forgotten or rejected, we're going to have to learn to ask them what kind of help they need, not just tell them what we think they ought to do. We're also going to need to take what we've learned there and speak with people about their issues to help them connect the dots of the injustices they've faced and find some ways to right those wrongs, like voting for their candidates that understand their issues and are willing to stand up against the racism and poverty and environmental destruction that have held them back for far too long. As we're hearing so much these difficult days, God bless the United States of America. So may it be. Now, our hymn is a song that's been one of the children's favorites here. It's called Home, written by Andrew Pearson and Greg Holden.
Hold on to me as we go, as we roll down this unfamiliar road. Although this weight is stringing us along, just know you're not alone. We're gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind mind to those demons that fill you with fear. The trouble that might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always get found. Just know you're not alone. We're gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to those demons that fill you with fear. The trouble that might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always get found. Just know you're not alone. We're gonna make this place your home.
And now a benediction from the late theologian and preacher Howard Thurman. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Go in peace, walk softly on your paths, and may the light of love shine on you all your days.